beyond thrilled to be part of the PEG family, and in the last 8 months that I've been with PEG, this could very well be like one of my favorite opportunities that I've had up to this point, to be interviewing Mike Maughan, Head of Global Insights at Qualtrics. And Mike, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
Yeah, thank you. I'm thrilled to be here, thrilled to be with all of you, so thanks for having me.
Not only do you have a remarkable resume, as Cameron just pointed out, you're now instrumental in normalizing this relatively new metric called experience management in thousands of companies around the world. So Mike, what exactly is experience management, and how is it now shaping the way companies are using data?
Yeah, so I assume most of you are at least somewhat familiar with Qualtrics. As we started here in Provo, Utah, back in 2002 in a basement, our goal was simply to make sophisticated research simple. Nobody was doing a ton of online anything back then. And so we started as a market research platform, and over time, our total addressable market grew substantially as we added different areas of the business, looking at employee engagement, looking at how your customers felt. And 2 years ago, next week, we launched something called experience management that allowed organizations to measure the 4 core experiences of business: customer experience, employee experience, product experience, and brand experience. And that really blew up our total addressable market. At that point, we took an our Series C, additional $180 million in funding, and launched what has become a brand new category, the way Salesforce launched CRM, or the way Workday launched HRM. Qualtrics has established this brand new category, experience management, helping organizations understand the experiences that they provide to their employees, to their customers, and with their product and brand. And while none of you likely know it, you probably have taken a Qualtrics survey. What you may not know is that all the food you're eating, all the clothes you're wearing, all the transportation that you used to get here has all been impacted by Qualtrics. Nike does all of their product and concept testing using Qualtrics, as does Under Armour. Boeing makes all their planes using Qualtrics. All your golf clubs are impacted by Qualtrics. And so it's looking at the experience that we provide and helping organizations to do that. Millennials have helped push us into a new realm. They want to give experiences as gifts rather than things. They collect experiences rather than things. Their Instagram accounts are the same as what people used to collect in their front room, right? And so experience is the new currency, and the organizations that win or lose are those that can create great experiences, and that's what Qualtrics has created, a platform to help organizations measure, improve, and act on in real time.
So there's a statistic out there that states companies around the globe spend an average of $40 billion with a B dollars every single year on product research, and yet 80% of product launches fail. Why do you think that is?
I mean, it's a great question. I think that the real genius behind experience management is recognizing the interconnectedness of all of this. How many of you have ever flown on United? What's the first story that comes to mind if I ask you about United? A few chuckles. Most people would say, and I'm not trying to pick on United. Even great companies have hard moments. United is most commonly recognized, when I go talk to everybody, for having dragged this person off a plane, right? It started with a bad product experience. They'd oversold the flight to a larger degree than most companies did. That led to a terrible employee experience. You had employees who weren't sufficiently empowered to take care of the problem. That leads to this horrific customer experience, where you see this gentleman being dragged off a plane, which leads to this terrible brand experience, where everybody to this day still thinks of United dragging a dude off a plane. And so you see the interconnectedness of all of these. When you look at why do products fail, most often it's because we're looking at things in silos. If we all went out to dinner at a different place, and the food was amazing, the ambiance terrific, but the waitstaff terrible, none of us leave that experience and say, gosh, that was amazing, I hope their HR department improves. We experience the world in one holistic way, and no one's been able to measure the experiences the same way we as people experience the world. So the XM, or experience management platform, why so many products fail is because we're doing product research in a silo. And if you're not looking at the interconnectedness of the world, you will always be left behind.
So Mike, as of October of last year, 75% of Fortune 100 companies were using Qualtrics, and I'd imagine since then, I'm sure it's gone up. Especially after that $8 billion acquisition. The announcement was made in October, and then the deal was done in January. So can you talk for a minute? I'm interested to know what the inside of all of that looked like leading up the months, weeks, and days of that announcement.
How much time do we have?
A couple minutes.
Look, I mean, it was an amazing opportunity. We love Utah. This is the largest enterprise SaaS acquisition of all time, and the second largest, second only to WhatsApp. And it came right here out of Provo, Utah. I think it's an amazing opportunity. We're thrilled to have been part of it. It's interesting, in Business Insider, there's a reporter, Julie Bort, and she wrote an article about when we turned down our $500 million cash acquisition offer. And then she wrote an article 2 years later when we got our $1 billion valuation and said, look, they turned it down, they were crazy, but. And then she wrote an article about the $2.5 billion, and then she wrote an article about the $8 billion. It just kept going. I think it's evidence of the fact that no one place has the monopoly on smart people. You can do great things wherever you are. So many people would tell you have to be in the Bay Area. You have to do it this way. Qualtrics did everything wrong, and it worked out perfectly. So one, be you, right? I think that's just an interesting lesson from this in general. But I think the second thing is that Qualtrics did something I think that was fairly unique that most organizations have a hard time doing. And that is that we were comfortable tearing down everything that we had built to build something better. And a lot of founders especially get very married to the product or the service that they've developed. And when the time to pivot your company comes, I hate that word because every startup is like, we just got to pivot. Great. But the idea is that most of these organizations fail because they don't have the fortitude to tear down what they've built in order to build something better. And I think that that's a key piece no matter what business you're building, no matter what you're doing, you have to be comfortable getting rid of what you've done in order to go into where the greater market is. That's a massively risky proposition. I'll never forget when we launched Experience Management, there was a select group of us, we all sat around a conference room table, and Ryan stood up, and we literally went around the room, and he said, this is our bet the business decision. We're betting everything we have on launching Experience Management. We're getting rid of what we've done, and we're going to go to something new. It was our speak now or forever hold your peace moment.
Were people scared? Were people...
I don't think we were scared, but I think it was a moment where we all had to be very honest with ourselves. And we went around the room and everyone individually had to own what her or his perspective was to say, this is what we're going to do. These are my concerns. This is why I think it's going to work. And at the end, we all stacked hands and said, we're going to bet our multi-billion-dollar company on becoming a much larger multi-billion-dollar company by launching this new thing. But it's that kind of willingness to make hard decisions and say, okay, are we willing to tear down what we built to get there? And it takes that kind of decision-making courage to build something that's going to last and really change how organizations operate.
Well, one thing I know certainly hasn't changed a lot at Qualtrics is employee experience. This is an area the company is known globally for really mastering. So what led Qualtrics to place such a huge emphasis on making employees happy, on thinking about what they want?
If we don't own employee experience ourselves, we can't have any leg to stand on to tell everybody else you can do it. So one just simple example. We used to give a holiday bonus where we gave every employee $1,000. And you heard where I went to school, I had a lot of student loan debt, right? I'd take that $1,000 and shove it straight at my loans every year. We said that's not that fun. We want you to go have an experience. So we replaced our annual holiday bonus with what we call our experience bonus. And now we give everybody $1,500 every year to go have an experience. Go do something you would never have done otherwise. Cross something off your bucket list. We don't tell you what to do. We just ask you to go have an experience, and then you come back and tell us what it was. Some people went down and volunteered in an orphanage. We had other people buy front row tickets to a Justin Timberlake concert for them and their spouse in order to have that experience. I used mine to go to Plains, Georgia, to go visit Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. Because I thought that'd be fun. Whatever you want to do every year, we want you to go have an experience. where you can do that. And so we're always looking at how do we provide unforgettable experiences in every realm, customer, employee, product, or brand, to make sure that we can always live with integrity and walk the walk of being an experience company, because that's what we're going to help everybody else be.
I was blown away when I saw this article last year. Like, I started looking for job opportunities at Qualtrics because I was ready to leave the news station for $1,500, right, a year. And I'm curious to know, are you monitoring that? Like, do these people have to use the $1,500 to go do something? Is there a way to check on that? Or if they don't want to do it, maybe they don't have to?
Well, they don't have to take the bonus, but yes, they have to go have an experience.
They can't just pocket the money and,
correct.
like you
So
said, dump it somewhere.
they fill out a survey that says, what are you going to go do? What are the dates that you're going to go do it? And then as soon as they match those dates and have the experience, we put the money in their account, and then we ask for feedback after to have them tell us our story. We have a big blog that records a lot of these employee experiences, what people did. And so, look, it's been an amazing thing to watch. It's most amazing, though, to just hear what people come talk about. I've always wanted to do this. We've always wanted to have this experience. We just didn't. Nothing changed. We were giving them money before. We're giving them money now. But when you help people have an experience, it changes so much because they recognize, one, that you're listening, and two, that you care. And three, it's forcing them in a way to do something that they've always wanted to do. They maybe just weren't able to pull that trigger. And now you've enabled them to do it. And it's really fun to see.
Incredible. I mean, is Cameron in the house? Like, should he be taking notes? There he is. Just saying. Full disclosure, I'm a millennial. Are you a millennial?
Technically, yes,
You
I am.
technically
Barely,
are a millennial.
barely.
I like it. We're all
But I'm gonna
millennials
own
at
it.
heart. We really are. Maybe people don't want to actually own that. In all seriousness, a lot of the time, I think we as millennials do end up getting a little bit of a bad rap. And this is an area that I know Qualtrics has done a lot of research into. And so I'm curious to know what the data does say and why you think it is, Mike, that people, like, gosh, we do get a bad rap sometimes. What's going on there?
Look, I think that people fundamentally misunderstand millennials, but I think that it's essential to understand millennials in today's workplace, right? All of the data shows that they generally are a unique generation. As much as we're like, oh, everybody's like that. No, we're not, right? Millennials are the first always connected generation. They're used to receiving feedback constantly. And so when they come into the workforce, sometimes we're like, if they ask one more time how they're doing. But think about it. They post to Instagram. They post to Facebook. And they immediately know how many likes they got, how many comments. I'd be embarrassed to say how many people probably are like, oh, should I take it down? It's not getting a lot of likes, right? But they're used to this idea. And so we have to fundamentally transform how we work with millennials. It was interesting. I was talking to one prominent CEO, and I thought this individual was going to say that it's really annoying that millennials are always asking for feedback. It was fascinating. His response was, it's wonderfully refreshing. Because they want to know how they're doing, not in a needy way, where it's like, am I okay, am I okay, am I okay? It's because they want to understand, they want to improve. A lot of people find millennials to be entitled because they're like, oh, they got to be CEO tomorrow and they're not willing to work. What all of our research has shown is that that's not really true. We just need to understand a little bit better. Millennials want a seat at the table. They want you to give them big problems and get out of their way. They say the number one thing they're looking for is career growth. They're not looking to change companies every 20 minutes. All of our data shows that if they feel they're paid fairly, not paid a ton of money, just paid fairly, and have opportunity for career advancement, then the vast majority say they would love to stay at a company for more than 10 years. So why are millennials quitting their jobs? Because we're not giving them those opportunities to grow the same way that we can. So we always say, I always say, I should say, you can't manage millennials. You can channel their energy in a way and give them big opportunities to go solve things. I'm always having to resist the temptation to jump in on members of my team because that's kind of our natural inclination. Not always micromanage, but maybe we're a little more involved than we should be. Get out of the way, give them big problems, let them go out on the playing field, and it's amazing what you'll see most millennials do.
Millennials, by the way, are those born between the years 1982 and the year 2000. According to projections, millennials are actually going to be making up 75% of the workplace by the year 2025. So 6 years away. It seems like thoughtful employers, business owners would be wise to consider this and to think about what motivates millennials, what motivates us. I can say as a millennial, it's really exciting and cool to be involved with a company doing cool things, right? Like making incredible campaigns and attracting big time celebrities. You know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I do.
Take a peek. Yep, the X4, the annual Qualtrics Experience Management Summit, which, by the way, everybody, is happening next week. That's one of the reasons why Mike has been so busy. He is the person who's really organizing and running this entire event and attracting celebrities like Sir Richard Branson, Ashton Kutcher, Oprah Winfrey, and what, Barack Obama? Yeah. What in the world? Congratulations, and how did you manage to do that?
I think sometimes people look at X4R Summit and say, wow, just a boondoggle, a lot of famous people, give us some substance. What I think is amazing about this lineup in particular, and having worked with each of these individuals here on this screen, all of them are coming to talk about experience management and to talk about the 4 core areas of business, and most of them are coming to talk about how they use Qualtrics. So I just got off the phone with Adam Silver a few hours ago. They use Qualtrics in fascinating ways in the NBA to power employee experience, both at the NBA as an entity itself, and then to look at the employee experience of all of the different teams. Ashton's going to talk about how we all want to experience breakthroughs. Qualtrics, we talk about, is for breakthrough companies. If you want to go through a same stodgy platform that you've always done, that's fine. But we want to work with people who are trying to do breakthroughs and accomplish breakthroughs in whatever industry you're in. Because there's a pattern that we can follow, but that's never going to get us to where we need to go. When we look at who we're going to hire, I don't want to hire someone who's just going to follow someone's old playbook. Obama will talk about the citizen experience. What was he trying to provide as president of the United States? He is often saying things like, it's fun when CEOs come and tell me, why don't you run the government more like a business? And his response is, cool, if you're selling iPhones, you're selling them to a specific demographic who's going to pay a certain amount of money for something. He said, when I was CEO of the United States, basically, what I had to do was serve everybody, the rich and the poor, the educated and uneducated. I didn't have a customer base or customer demographic like most of the organizations have to do. So he thought very differently about experience. Qualtrics was a huge piece of the Obama administration. It's a huge piece of the current administration. They're all using it to help gather the feedback on how they're creating opportunities for the public and managing the citizen experience.
Congratulations, Mike, on an incredible lineup, and good luck next week. I'm excited to hear how it goes.
Yeah, thanks. We're excited.
Yeah, the other thing I wanted to congratulate you on before we open it up to questions is the innovative and impactful campaign and now foundation, Five for the Fight. So you, I know, co-founded this group, and also the fact that you managed to get an NBA team on board and the way it was all executed was so well done. How did that all come together in the first place?
For years, we would donate to different cancer charities and different cancer hospitals. But about 3 years ago, we decided, look, we're in a unique position. We work with companies in over 90 different countries that have millions and millions of employees. What if instead of us just donating, we became a catalyst for the cause? And we really want to root out cancer forever. There's the old axiom, for all the 1,000 hacking at the leaves of evil, there's but one hacking at the root. And we said, let's hack at the root of cancer, which is where we go with cancer research. And so we started something called Five for the Fight. The premise is simple. We invite everyone to give $5 for the fight against cancer. It's crowdfunding for cancer research. Everybody can skip a latte once a week and give $5. It's a very easy thing to do. So we launched Five for the Fight, inviting everyone to give $5 for the fight against cancer. A year later, the Jazz come to us. They mailed me a jersey that said Qualtrics. First time the NBA had ever opened up advertising on the jersey. And so we sat down and we thought about it and we said, is this something that we want to do? And the answer was no, for a lot of reasons. One, I don't care that much. Two, it's a bad business decision to just do what everybody else has done.
Was this ultimately up to you to make the decision about what to put on the jerseys, or was this a collaborative group effort?
It was up to Ryan and I.
It was up to you and Ryan.
So
okay.
Ryan and I go through this, and we say, what do we want to do, right? And along the way, we have this idea, what if we put 5 for the Fight on the jersey instead? One, it's the right thing to do. We want to catalyze the cause. We want to take this cause to the world, and the way that we're doing it, while good, wasn't going to have that same level of impact. And so we said, what if we put 5 for the Fight on there? And what if we use this as a way to blow it up? Now, the NBA at first was not on board. They didn't want to do it.
Interesting. Why not?
I mean, it's a relatively new charity. Are we willing to do that? Do we want people sort of soliciting funds via this? They weren't on board, and we didn't have a 501c3. We'd been donating the money straight to different cancer charities.
They preferred to just have the name Qualtrics.
It would have been much easier. And so massive credit to the Jazz. They fought this battle with us. We went and got a 501c3 in 3 weeks instead of 9 months. And we got everything done. We put it on the patch. And interestingly, just from a media perspective, for example, when we put this on the patch, we garnered 14 times more media coverage than any related patch, including the first one. So you look at it both from a just doing good perspective, and that's why we did it. It was great. From a business perspective, 14 times more media coverage. That's a massive multiple.
So Mike,
from
this
a
is
side.
something that you foresaw. I mean, you just said it was the right thing to do, but also the right thing to do from a business decision standpoint. How did you know that?
I don't know that you always know anything, right? I mean, I'll never forget Steve Starks, president of the Jazz, Ryan Smith and I get together to announce this to the company on February 13th, 2 years ago. I've played different sports. I've done risky things. This was the first time in my life that right before we went out to do it, I didn't, but I almost threw up. Because I was getting phone calls all the time, 1, 2, 3 in the morning from Ryan and others. Are you sure? Are you sure? And I'm like, I am absolutely sure. And then you hang up and you're like, I don't have a clue.
Do I know? I don't know.
But I think it's going to work.
Yeah.
So sometimes, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes you have to just trust your gut. And to Ryan's incredible credit, he was willing to bet on something that he wasn't sure about. We were willing to bet on something we weren't sure about. And the Jazz were willing to push it through. Now, Qualtrics sponsored. We pay market rate for this jersey patch. They didn't give us any sort of a deal. And then we donated it to 5 for the Fight. It's the right thing to do. It's been amazing to watch the catalyzing cause.
I love that you are maximizing value for companies right through data, but then maximizing value in lives through fighting this important fight, and it's a worthy one. And so thank you for what you're doing. I actually wrote down a few names of people who are important to me who unfortunately lost that battle. But, and I know some other people out in the audience have done the same. And Cameron mentioned Peg is happy just to commit a modest donation, just as a tiny, tiny, small token of our gratitude for you being here.
Genuinely, so thank you so much for that.
Oh,
I mean,
of
it
course.
means a lot.
Of course.
We unfortunately, we look at this and we say cancer follows us. I mean, Ryan started this, his dad had cancer, and then his father-in-law, and Lori Kuhn, who runs it, just lost her mom to cancer. And since launching it ourselves, my mom was diagnosed with cancer. And so we hate the disease. We really appreciate your willingness to help contribute. And
I'm so sorry to hear
are
that.
excited,
Is she in chemo? Is she?
She's doing well. She's fighting a good fight.
Good.
Looks good.
Good. We'll keep her in our prayers, absolutely. And thank you for creating a space to talk about this and to do something as a community, as a company, and just as humans. We really, really appreciate you and everything you're doing. The time is short, so I do want to open it up to questions. So if you have a question for Mike, just toss your hand up in the air. Someone will bring you a microphone, and you can ask your question loud and clear, and then Mike will go ahead and respond, and we have about 10 minutes to do that.
Perfect.
So the first thing I thought when I saw the just news ticker was, uh-oh, are they moving to Seattle? Or what happens to Utah? What happens to Provo? I think there was some positive news after that that kind of allayed those fears, but can you speak to that? Like what's next for Qualtrics and where does Utah figure into the SAP plans?
Yeah, great question. I mean, we're committed to Utah, always have been, always will be. I think if anything, what you're going to see is something like what happened with Omniture and Adobe, where you're going to watch SAP come invest very deeply in Utah and in the state of Utah. We're committed to being here. We're also committed to not being held back by Utah. So we have 20 offices globally. We have 6 different offices in the United States, and we'll continue to build those out.
The question that I had was regarding social media. And which one would you say seems to have the most longevity and potential in the general social media space, and why?
It's a fair question. Let me start with, I'm not a social media expert. I think it's interesting to see where millennials want to go. If you talk to Mark Cuban, Mark has bet on the fact that he thinks that millennials are going to want to erase more of their digital footprint. It's shocking, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, how few millennials are actually on LinkedIn. When I first heard the number, I didn't believe anybody. I said that can't be true. Millennials are not getting onto LinkedIn. Millennials have a very adverse reaction to Facebook. This is where many people joke as well that Instagram acquired Facebook way more than Facebook acquired Instagram. Because Instagram is by far the dominant platform in terms of engagement and keeping people on there. That's why Mark wants to bet in things Snapchat-esque. I would say that there's a massive level of change happening. And what I would bet on is change, not the fact that one of those is going to stay. What's going to have staying power? I don't know. But what I guarantee is it's going to be who's able to change the fastest and continue to innovate. And I think that there are some trends that you'll want to bet on, which is what are we going to do with our digital footprint? And I think you're seeing a massive hesitancy to continue to invest in a digital footprint that will be disrupted and that will expose you to massive privacy violations.
So experience management, this idea of now that you're going to larger and larger companies, both to sell your product, but also to attach yourself to one of the largest companies in Europe. How do you, as using your product, be able to provide a consistent experience when you're scaling up to using your product for larger and larger companies?
Yeah, so first, thankfully, I'm not the CEO of SAP and don't have to worry about it. But I will say this, it's fascinating. This is why one of the reasons we're so excited to be part of SAP. They have a 92% employee engagement rate. We don't have a 92% employee engagement rate. To be able to do that at scale is unbelievable. They've figured that out. Now, part of creating an incredible employee culture is recognizing that there are some core principles that you need to have consistent across everything, and there are some things that you need to adapt based on where you are. Simple example from Qualtrics, if you come into our headquarters in Provo, Utah, on the 3rd floor, if you go into any of our offices globally, you'll recognize the place. But when you go into our office here in Provo, you go to the 3rd floor, you're going to see a 50s style ice cream and soda parlor. If you go into our office in Dublin, you go onto the 3rd floor, you're going to run into basically the same thing, same format, same color scheme, but you're going to find a Guinness pub on the 3rd floor because the whole country has a drinking problem. You go to our office in Seattle, you're going to see a coffee shop in that same spot, right? It's a silly little example, but I think it's important to recognize that in you're trying to establish these global cultures and how are we focused on, you have to have key principles that you leverage no matter where you go. For us, we call them tacos. Transparency, all in, customer obsessed, one team, scrappy. SAP has something very similar. But those are the core principles that no matter where you go, no matter where you are, any Qualtrics employee knows tacos. This is a great opportunity for us, though, to continue to learn from SAP, because when you are able to have, at that scale, that type of employee engagement culture, that's a phenomenal thing to look at, and they've done amazing things right. Bill McDermott, the CEO of SAP, one of the things that he would tell you is that you have to challenge people, what we talked about a little with millennials. The guy's been unbelievable throughout his career. He'll walk in and his team, he makes sure that they know crystal clear what the goal is. Wherever he was in any sales team he managed, they were going to be number one in the company. And having that kind of leadership and that kind of energy motivates people in a way that is very hard to capture and very hard to understand. But when people have a common goal and we're all lined up against it, they're there.
Thank you. Thank you for your questions. I'm going to cut it off right there because I do want to be respectful of Mike's time. But I do have one last thought. And I would love to pick your brain a little bit on this before you go. And that topic, Mike, is change. So as so many of our PEG employees know and our partners know, PEG is in this very sort of interesting place right now, as are many companies here in Utah, where we have this incredibly strong foundation, right? It's been built on solid principles and values that have gotten us to where we are today. And yet, we're also in this evolutionary stage where a world of opportunities are opening up to us, and we're starting to grow at an exponential rate and become more sophisticated in our processes and our procedures. So my question is, how do you view change, and how might strategic and astute firms like ours handle that balance between the principles that shaped our strong foundations and our humble beginnings, and of course, the opportunity to grow?
Before I worked at Qualtrics, one of the places that I had interned during school was a company that had gone from $2 million to $40 million in revenue in 12 months. By any estimation, that's a phenomenal track record. I was very uncomfortable with how they were handling their growth and how they were going forward and looking at change, because they weren't thoughtful about it. Yes, they had struck oil, and yes, things were going well. But I firmly believe that unless you are intentionally racing to the top, you are unknowingly racing to the bottom. And maybe you're going to hit on something great, but you're unknowingly racing to the bottom if you haven't set the groundwork in place to allow you to adapt and change and make smart decisions. A very simple example. If you're growing that quickly, but you're already giving out titles, this is one thing this company did. They already had their vice president of marketing and their chief sales officer. Well, that's going to work really well, and maybe that's the right person for you at a $2 million a year revenue business. I promise that there are very few people who are going to be able to scale with you that quickly to be the right VP of marketing or chief revenue officer at $40 million in a 12-month period. Some people can scale, most can't. If you're doing that, then you're setting yourself up for a terrible employee engagement and a terrible employee experience. Because you're going to either have to fire the person, you have to demote them, you have to hire someone above them and work the title thing. Whereas if you just wait to give titles, then you give yourself a lot more opportunity and leeway in the future. It's a simple example.
It's a great idea.
But it's a way that organizations, you can tell if they're being thoughtful about their growth, thoughtful about change, and looking forward to the future.
So articulately said, and I think your view of change is particularly insightful for us here at PEG. Your answer, it's interesting. It definitely sort of foreshadows what's to come tomorrow with the presentations that will be happening and some of the discussions that will be had. So we just are going to wrap things up, but I certainly appreciate you being here with us tonight. I know all of us do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.